you've been doing this for all of our guests with our introduction. He is the former NFL defensive lineman. Mike and Mike co-host on ESPN Radio, and now he's going to be with his son, Mike Jr. It's Gojo and Golic, and they'll stream daily from 8 to 10 on the East Coast, Samsung TV Plus, and DraftKingsNetwork.com. Say hello to...
Long intro.
Wait. Oh, sorry. Come on, let's go. Mike Golic. Hey.
All right, there he is. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Let's rip my head off.
Wow. Mike Golic is here. Big Mike is here. Yeah. Took away Paulie's little toy there. You're medium Mike. You're not Big Mike anymore. What's your playing weight?
Right now I'm about 225, 230. I'm at my high school weight, my senior year in high school weight. And I attribute it to the fact that I've come to realize that she won't admit it, but I'm worth more to my wife alive still.
Oh.
So she's feeding me well, having me be in shape and that whole thing. So as soon as she starts feeding me garbage food, that's when I start sleeping with one eye open.
That's when we bring in Dateline comes in.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I'm going to write a little note. If you don't see me, help, it's my wife.
Oh, that pesky DNA. What was your maximum playing weight?
So I went into the NFL at 275, and I finished at about 300 with the Dolphins. Felt good at 300, and then I'd say I retired, but the league retired me. When nobody calls you, you're retired. And I kept eating and drinking like I was playing because you could just burn it off. And probably 2 years after I was done playing, I was about 34, 35. I literally got out of the shower one day and I looked at myself and I looked like a vanilla milkshake. I mean, it was disgusting. And I was about 318, 320. And I knew I had to start losing some weight.
But you look at players now, and it feels like defenses are smaller.
Yes.
I mean, now it's speed, but do you think we'll have a shift where offenses will go, let's counteract your speed with power?
So this is what's happening. When I was playing, the edge rusher of today wasn't in the league. We called them a tweener, and there was no place for them. They weren't big enough to be a DN, and they were too big to be a linebacker. Dwight Freeney, right? I mean, in my era, he would have been that tweener guy, like kind of where do you put him? And now we've shifted to this. So what's happening, and this is, I think, one of the reasons of the devaluation, if that's a word, someone help me, of the running back, is offenses now are spread out and we're passing the ball more. So the value of the running back can be more in the receiving part, like Christian McCaffrey, who leads the way there is, or an Austin Eckler type person. So, and the defensive rushers are smaller. Everybody's a little smaller. So the old linemen sometimes can be a little smaller so they can dance with them more. So what's going to happen? It can be cyclical. Now that you have a smaller defense that's spread out, so what do? Start to run the ball. Yeah. Say, okay, they're smaller and they're spread out. We're going to start to hammer the ball. So maybe the running game comes back a little bit. You're starting to tighten it up and maybe guys start to get bigger. Because this is one of the things that went on with Fritz Shermer, God rest his soul, one of the great D coordinators. He would want to draft bigger cornerbacks when bigger receivers were coming out to handle the bigger receivers. So, yeah, it all becomes cyclical of size and how the game is played.
And you were able to be a part of those teams with Reggie White. We were talking about this yesterday, that he might be underrated. He could be the greatest defensive player of all time. I know LT might have been more impactful.
Right.
But if you're looking at Mean Joe Green, Reggie White, longevity, doing it two different teams at a very high level. How would you categorize Reggie White?
Reggie White to me was the greatest D lineman I've ever seen play. I mean, this and a better person. Again, God rest his soul. I've lost 5 guys off that starting defense. I mean, it's horrible. But this guy was 6'6", 315. I watched him run a 4.6 40. He was always the strongest lifter on the team. He'd bench, power clean, and squat. And that would basically be it. He could line up at end, D tackle, nose tackle in that 46 defense, be the strongest guy, be the quickest guy, be whatever you wanted him to be. He was one of the most amazing athletes I've ever seen play.
And he threw people around. Jason Garrett was with us, and he said that Larry Allen's rookie year, Reggie is one of the greatest, if not the greatest.
Move.
The greatest offensive lineman in history.
Yep.
And he's tossing Larry Allen around.
That's his strength and leverage. That's a leverage move because you go up the field so hard with the rip, you get the old lineman running with you. So now you use the old lineman's momentum and weight against him and come back with the club and catch him. And these guys were going horizontal. It's scary to see for Larry Allen. Again, I retired the year before, or was retired the year before Larry Allen came in the league, and was almost thankful. I'm like, that dude didn't want to just block you; he wanted to kill you. And to watch, Reggie hoist him was absolutely amazing.
I'm also curious about players now in preseason that Andy Reid wants his starters to play.
Right.
But if you're trying to make a team, and Mahomes is out there, are you trying to make the team and maybe take a shot at Mahomes? Like, I would be concerned about, you got 3 games to prove yourself to make a roster there. Is that something that would have entered your mind, trying to make the roster when you were drafted?
If I'm playing against Mahomes?
Yeah.
I'm trying to destroy him.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't care if he's on the other team. I don't care if it's Patrick or Mahomes. My first tackle in the NFL was Walter Payton. And when I did it, I didn't even realize it was Walter Payton. And now later in the game, he made me look foolish, which he did to a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, when I went to Notre Dame, Blair Keel was the quarterback, and they had the red shirts on. I was a true freshman, and I was one that played a bit as a freshman. The first scrimmage, I pass rushed and smoked them in the back, blindsided them. And I mean, the fight that broke out, and the coach is yelling at me, and then I realized you're not supposed to hit a quarterback with the red jersey on. But if you're on the other team in one of these preseason games, especially. And players know more than anybody else, the writing on the wall of where you are in the pecking order and what you need to do. Hell yeah, I'm trying to make a play on that guy to make the team. I don't care who it is.
We're talking to Mike Golic, medium Mike Golic, not big Mike Golic anymore. You're going to go back into the mornings with your son. I don't know what this is like. Now, I announced that in 4 years I'm going to be done doing this on a daily basis. I worry that when you wake up, you have such a routine. And then you don't have that routine. And I didn't know what that was like for you and your wife.
Well, I mean, 25 years between doing morning radio in Arizona before I went to ESPN and doing all the years there, 4:15 every day for 25 years. Yeah. And it took me a few months to kind of not at least open my eyes at that time and then go back to sleep. But you get out of it pretty quickly, out of your routine. You find other things to do. Now, when I left ESPN in 2021, I was 58 years old, and I didn't want to, like my wife said, what, you can just sit around all day, or you want to do something. So I've been tinkering.
Did you feel sorry for yourself?
It's like I equate so much to football. And when I was at the Houston Oilers, and they cut me, right? So I don't have a say in the matter. They cut me. Now I left Philadelphia on my own. I was a free agent. Then I got cut by the Oilers. By the Dolphins, and that was the end of my career. People ask, when you left ESPN, I said, it felt the same way. They cut me. My contract was up. They didn't want to renew it. So I was like, it felt like a football team where they didn't want me anymore. Your pride gets hurt because they don't want you anymore. And then at some point you want to find something to do. Like when I left from Houston to go to Philly, I didn't really care about Houston anymore, but there's part of you that wants to play well to say you made a mistake of getting rid of me. I didn't think of that much with ESPN because I spent so much time there. I loved so many people there. A couple people I didn't. More on the management side, but that's really true anywhere. Nobody is singing Kumbaya with everybody in a company. So you have the people you really dig and some people you don't. But I just had to kind of move on and say, what do I want to do next? And I didn't think I wanted to do a daily show again. But, as I had said, I started there working with Tony Bruno, our buddy Tony Bruno, and then Greeny for so many years, and then Trey Wingo and my son. The most fun I had, my God, I got to work with my kid.
Yeah.
We'd flip on the microphone at 6 a.m., and there I am talking with my son. So now we're going to do that again for 2 hours every morning. So I'm not passing that up.
Yeah. See, I love the grind. I love every day. Like, I'd rather hit golf balls than play golf. Like, I love that grind every single day. Like, what do we have? Right. 3 hours, make it happen.
So when I had left ESPN and was really kind of just doing interviews here or there, every now and then I'd do an interview and I'd be talking, and I'd come upstairs and my wife would be like, you got to get back into something because you just have too much to say. Yeah. So it was the same thing, especially when something happened. Yeah. You want an outlet to talk, and I didn't have one. So I'm with you there. I did kind of miss being able to kind of verbalize, what I was thinking.
And also when it's too raw when you leave. Now, I left on my own decision.
Right.
But then there's that raw, like I'm still mad at something or somebody.
Sure.
And you got to shut up.
Yeah.
But I didn't shut up. when I left. I was like out the door, and I'm still, had issues there.
I mean, listen, I didn't want Mike and Mike to end, and then it ended, but it wasn't my choice. I didn't want to be done at ESPN, but again, it wasn't my choice. So at some point, you have to realize, well, I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But that pride thing, and that where you say, okay, I want to show you that was a mistake, whether it ends up being true or not, I have no idea. And I try and not burn a bridge too much. And because my wife's always like, you need to write a book. And I said, no, I don't. I said, because when you write a book, it has to be salacious, and they want names and they want things that happen. And I'm never going to do that publicly.
Give me the reason why Notre Dame should join a conference.
They shouldn't. But I'll tell you.
Is there a reason why they should?
There's three reasons. Well, there'll always be three reasons why they won't. Obviously, we know the number one, money, right? If you're making enough money on your own. And they're probably looking for $50-60 million. They want more, but they probably end up, I'd say, $50-60 million on their own.
Is this from NBC?
Probably, yes, okay. I would say so.
Okay.
They're probably looking for the home for the rest of your sports. They have one now in the ACC, so that's good. And then ease to get into the college playoffs. Well, that's going to expand because they're going to 12 teams. Now, they'll never have a first-round bye because they'll take the top 4 conference champs, 1, 2, 3, 4, with a bye. 5 through 12 will play, but they can be 5, 6, 7, or 8, and they'll get a home game in the first round, and they'll be good with that. So if those things start to change, money not as good, not as much ease into the playoffs, that's enough to think about a conference. And if it's a conference, in my eyes, it'll be the Big Ten. That makes the most sense. But until then, why? And I'll say this, Dan, everybody that kind of doesn't like Notre Dame and always likes to throw barbs, and I'm sure some in this room are like that. You just, if you want to admit it, great. Yeah, don't. Yeah, oh, there. Yeah.
No, that was yesterday with Will Ferrell.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't like Notre Dame.
I saw Brady Quinn with picking him up off the ground, defending ND, and there was no low grab there by any stretch.
It looked like Brady was going a little too.
But Notre Dame is independent, and the rest of their sports are in a conference. That's what needs to happen in all of college football Division I. Separate football. Let the Pac-12 teams do all their Olympic sports in the Pac-12 for the ease of travel. I mean, now you got the Cal, Stanford, USC. Stanford, USC, not Stanford, USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington going to the Big Ten. They're flying to Rutgers for stuff. Their volleyball team or whatever.
I like we always mention it's Rutgers they have to go to.
Well, that's the furthest east, is it not? Or is it Penn State? Probably Penn State. Rutgers is?
Rutgers is.
So see that? My geographical knowledge there. So I picked, they have to fly there. So everybody be independent, football-wise, and you can stay in your conference in the other sports, and you still divvy up the money. That's what they need to figure out, is how you're going to divvy up the money. And by the way, we're talking about schools. You were never known as the Maple Missile. I think it was the Fraudulent Flyer.
Wow, Fraudulent Flyer. Why? What are we doing here?
I don't know.
I talked about your weight loss.
I know.
I met your wife. Nice. I loved your wife.
And I threw a shot at you last night when we were out. I know. And you know what? I'm sorry, but I'm not.
Because I'm not going to go greenie on you here. Yeah. I'm not. There's not going to be any return fire. I won't do that. Speaking of controversies, Reggie Bush wants his Heisman back. Got a problem with Reggie wanting his Heisman?
Reggie should get his Heisman back. It's the stupidest thing in the world. We all know he was the best player in the country that year. I mean, the NCAA, listen, they're a joke anyway. They're controlling nothing. They were all Pontius Pilate when the NIL came around, washed their hands of it, said, you conferences handle it. All they do is deal with, Jim Harbaugh buying a burger for a kid in a dark period and, going to get suspended. It's a joke. Vacating wins. Seriously? I mean, taking your Heisman away, it's a joke. He should have his Heisman without question.
I just never understood you punish the kids who have nothing to do with Reggie Bush. So that decision dismantled USC for over a decade.
That's exactly right.
Pete Carroll leaves. All of a sudden you take away all those scholarships. My point is, if USC, the alumni, the fans want Reggie to have it back because they're the ones that got hurt.
Right.
So if you say, hey, you want him to have it back, then let him have it. Because you can't take away the Fab Five. You can take down a banner.
Exactly.
You can't take away the memories.
And we all know what they did.
Yeah.
We all know about the Fab Five. We all know Reggie Bush was the best and deserved that trophy. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of how they do that little kind of garbagey stuff.
Would you have asked for money coming out of high school now?
An NIL?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. I was actually a shockingly enough, a big recruit coming out of Ohio. So I definitely would have asked for NIL money. Dan, it has changed, and I'm great. I'm fine with NIL because I have no problem with the guys getting paid. What I always said is I never want the schools to pay the kids because then all of a sudden other sports are going to be gone. Because they're not going to be afford to fund those schools because they're paying football and basketball players. So I'm fine with NIL. But you throw everything into another bucket or another thing into a bucket. I heard, Brady Quinn talking about it on your show is, what does an 18-year-old do if you get offered $1 million to go play somewhere and in other schools, has an NIL for $500,000? We're asking an 18-year-old to sit down and make a really, well thought out decision. I mean, we don't know where he's coming from. What kind of guidance does he have? So I don't know if you're going to get the best decision out of an 18-year-old. They just might see the money and say, I'm going to take the money. So it's added another dimension to what these 18-year-olds have to think about of where they're going. And then if it doesn't work, they transfer right away and go in the portal. Again, I have no problem with that. Coaches that complain about the portal's making this tough, NIL's making it tough, I don't want to hear it. You all make $5, $6, $7 million a year, you sign a 7-year deal, and 2 years later you jump ship and go somewhere else. And you can coach for decades. These players have 4 or 5 years to do their thing. So if they feel they need to move around, and some of them overthink it and make a mistake by moving, but they should have the right and the ability to try and move around to get seen, because as we know, 2% make it to the NFL, 98% think they're going to make it to the NFL, which is fine. So they try and put themselves in position to be seen. I just hope they all understand the education part of it as well, of how that can carry you if and when you don't make it to the NFL.
And I wonder, I've been saying this all along, that what's stopping a billionaire from giving, let's say $50 million a year to a collective and saying, go out and buy whatever you want to with that money?
Nothing.
Right?
Nothing. Until they put up some guidelines and guardrails.
Can they put a cap? Would you be okay with the cap?
That would be interesting, wouldn't it? A salary cap? I mean, then what we're getting into, are we going to get into them being employees of a school? If they're employees, now you're going to get into unions, what the Northwestern players tried a few years ago. Yeah. Now you need a head of a union. I mean, you're going to start to really go down a road I don't know if you want to go down, but there's collectives everywhere. Hell, I just mentioned Brady Quinn. He's helping with the collective, the fund at Notre Dame. Yeah. So it's just a matter of what players want going in. Are they looking to cash in for all the money they can? Are they looking at most blue chippers look at schools that are going to give them an opportunity to play. They'd like to win and get a good look going to the NFL. Now you just threw money into the equation. But yeah, I mean, this is a time for alum. What we've done is we've taken a bag of money that was under the table and we've now put it on the top of the table.
He's medium Mike Golic, the former NFL defensive lineman, Mike and Mike co-host on ESPN Radio, and now he's going to be working with Mike Jr. It's Gojo and Golic. It's streaming 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. on East Coast on Samsung TV Plus and DraftKingsNetwork.com. It's great seeing you. I'll see you probably tomorrow night at the game.
You definitely will.
Thank you for stopping by.
I loved it. Thanks. Love the shirt.
He's Mike Golic. Take a break. Play of the day up next here on The Dan Patrick Show.